Hello, and welcome to the Steve and Mark Discuss podcast, where Steve looks through the media news around the world and picks up any interesting things for us to look at. I don't know what he's really going to bring up, so it makes for a very interesting conversation. So anyway, here we go. Without further ado, over to my associate, Steve.
Hi, people. Okie dokie, let's get into this one then. Last week I was on about Porton Down, the laboratories in Porton Down looking for a vaccine for a virus that doesn't exist. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was a bit strange.
Yes.
So it looks like we found it.
Oh, right.
Right. So the new bogeyman is called BA-6.
Oh.
And
spectacular name.
Right. Well, it's a shoot off from the COVID variant. It's a shoot off from Omicron. However, the scientists in the UK are saying that it's got a 30% death rate. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Which is normally when viruses get a shoot off from the previous one, it's weaker.
Yes. Yeah.
And the coronavirus wasn't all that strong in the first place anyway.
No.
Anyway,
no.
You have to go by what we read here. You know?
Okay. Yes.
Dr. Tricia Greenall said it's time to mask up. We have to mask up again. She says that it isn't for now.
Yeah.
Not right. Because they've only found this virus so far in Denmark.
Right.
A case in Denmark and a case in Israel. So using their logic, it's obvious that the virus is spreadable. Because if one case is in Denmark and one is in Israel, somebody taken from Denmark to Israel, or vice versa.
Yes.
That was from the British press. That was from both the Daily Mail and the Daily Mirror.
Right. Okay. So
it wasn't an obvious headline.
No.
It was, but it was down in the smaller stories. Parallel to that, they say that there are no conspiracies, and also there are no coincidences. From the east, a news report has come out that the bioweapons general of Russia, the General Krylov, says that the US is working on another virus to be released for next year, because the elections are next year, and he says that the Americans are wanting to release this virus so they can go back to their postal ballots and all the shenanigans that went on last time in 2020.
Yeah.
Right? And I thought, well, that's interesting. The two stories come out more or less at the same time.
Yeah.
From two regions of the world, distinct.
Yes.
That are not anywhere related to each other than they're talking about the same thing.
Yes.
If that makes sense to you.
No, I understand, and I've just processed that all in my mind. Right. Yeah.
And I thought what's interesting about it as well is that also next year are the elections in the UK. So it would be interesting to know if the UK would put in any contingency plans for next year, and if they would be similar to what the US did in 2020, and if they would be the same as what the US might do next year in 2024 for the next elections. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yes. Right. Okay. Now, I always found this interesting with masks. In my previous life, in engineering or site management in the UK, I did courses. Don't forget, I did courses to be a site manager, and we were always taught about this mask. Unless it's an N95 mask, it's pointless against asbestos, wood dust, you name it. It's pointless. Yeah. So if it allows, okay, asbestos fibers are microscopic, you know, but viruses are even smaller. So if my logic goes, if it can allow dust from wood get in there, and some people, you know, it's not pleasant to breathe in dust of any type. Asbestos, it's not going to stop any viruses. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, okay, it's probably got limited use. I've not seen anything that's out. I've actually seen evidence to the contrary, but okay, there's a lot being discussed. But this was prior to it in 2018. I was taught this. Somehow things changed between 2018 and 2020. Yeah, admittedly, in Brazil, we were making masks because my wife is a dressmaker, so she just converted to making masks. Fashion designed masks as well, you know, being Brazilian, people made a fashion statement with them.
Well, if we look back in history, very recent history, masks were very useful for groups like Antifa and also for BLM in the US.
Yeah, well, of course.
When they were tearing the country up, intimidating the voters.
Well, yes, but bearing in mind, I mean, we know about terrorism and people covering their faces anyway.
Which is why if everybody had the face covered, you wouldn't be able to determine who was going to be the terrorist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and who is. If only the terrorists wore the masks, they'd be easy to identify.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know who they are. You couldn't ID them, but yes, yeah. I think there was a few coincidences there, or either that, or somebody's very, very good at planning crises. Sorry. It is a yeah. Again with masks, yeah, they have limited use. We know that now.
Medical
use. Yeah. I mean, apart from the fact that it's quite good that some people did cover their faces for various reasons. It's a very, very subject that I brought up at the time, and I got shouted at by associates around me, not nastily. You know, what do you know? Where's your medical training? Well, I've got a certificate that says I did it in a course about site management and site safety, and it's one of the. I seem to remember it's one of the questions. What type of mask do you wear? Paper, cloth, N95, etc. Well, obviously N95 is the most effective. Now, with regards to the way the voting happens, I mean, with me, I've got alternative ways to vote, which I'm not going to start saying here, but all legal, of course. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know about the UK if we'll go. You probably have long queues 2 meters apart going in individually. Yeah, it would take forever to vote. We'll do it via Facebook. Why not? I mean, I put the links in last week about electric voting. It's tying this all up, yes. I mean, obviously, I've heard this somewhere before that the US administration would love to have a crisis to actually do one of two things: cancel or delay the elections. But given that the US managed to have elections during, well, again, they weren't directly affected by World Wars I or II on their home soil. So yeah, life could pretty much carry on as normal. But other countries managed to have elections during crisis. Yeah, and it's certainly interesting. Now, maybe that is that could be a conspiracy too far, but as we're beginning to learn with conspiracies that we think are incredible, it's difficult to write satire about them, to even joke, because not because of risk of cancellation or anything. It's because, you know, things are become apparent. Are we questioning something? Again, we're not medical people. We're just being told this is pandemic on the way, or possible pandemic that's weaker than the one before, but we've got to be more scared. Yeah.
Well, that's what they're trying to say, is it's 30%, it kills 30% of the people. So that is to make us, that appears to be to make us all scared. But that we all need to, because I mean, they could, you know what happened with the coronavirus? They said you had to lock down. Would they go to that? Would they go to that length?
Well, I think people are more cynical now, given what's been.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm saying is,
would
they try and lock people down?
Well,
and would they use the heavy arm of the law to what I'm trying to get at is that the UK are saying that they've got this virus.
Yeah, I know.
It's a new bogeyman, and this General Krylov said that the US are looking for. And don't forget that Biden signed off on, if there's a pandemic in the US, he hands off the sovereignty of the US to the UN,
which is just
months ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's just an incredible thing to do.
He just has to say that there's a pandemic and it's done.
Yeah,
he's the president.
Well, yeah, it's executive order. I don't know if, executive order. I think that's what they normally do if he wants to do that, which is quite frightening. Hasn't he signed more executive orders than any other president in history? I'm not sure. I've not checked this one out yet. It is a very, very, I'd say worrying development. Yes, because you can see this happening in front of us. Now, funny enough, yesterday, I actually I remember seeing the film actually in 1984 called 1984. And I just happened to catch yesterday the clip in it. I think, you know, I'm going with this, where John Hurt is on the table being interrogated or spoken to by Richard Burton. The character's in there. So it's Winston, who's the main character in the book 1984. And it's the famous quote about how many fingers am I holding up? And what history do you understand? And who have we been at war with? Yeah. And the burning of pictures and everything else, these people didn't exist. Yeah. Now I'm pushing it a bit here. But yes, I think you know where I'm going with this. It is I wouldn't like to think that we could draw parallels with it. I'd like to think that our administrations around the world are not cynical or as power hungry, or think that they're going to be able to control masses of population in the way detailed in the story of 1984. I don't believe that's possibly. Well, I do not believe that's their intent. Yeah.
Here in Brazil, this week, I think it was on Monday, the president of Brazil also signed up for this United Nations thing about the pandemic. If there's a pandemic, it's going to leave it all. The sovereignty goes to the United Nations, and he's already signed that. He signed it this week.
I mean, yeah.
Let's leave it at that. Let's move on.
If you enjoyed this discussion, can you please like, subscribe, and share it? Thank you.